The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast. Damn you, Hollywood. And over there is your host on the other side. You're so far away from me.
So far away.
There we go. Over there is your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Yeah. All right, everybody. We're going to try and get through this a little bit quicker than usual because we have a full house here for anyone watching the video portion. You can already tell. We've got Mark, who's here as always.
Howdy.
We also have joining us a couple of new guys to Damn You Hollywood and one returning face. We have returning Dorian Price. How you doing, Dorian?
Not too bad.
Doing his best Bret Michaels impression.
That's up there.
Are you going to talk to me tonight, Dorian?
Yeah.
You gotta be in character.
Okay. Somewhere in the middle of this podcast, you're gonna unskinny bop.
We'll see. If we get enough likes and comments, then yeah, we'll make it happen.
Oh my goodness! Look at the cat drag then. All right, I'm done now.
Please, thank you.
How am I on?
Also joining us for the first time, jumping into this particular morass that we call Damn You Hollywood. First up, we have Mac, who's been on an on trial, I believe, once before. Mac, nice to meet you. How you doing?
That's right. That's fine. How you guys doing today?
They're doing pretty good. Pretty good. And for the first time on Damn You Hollywood again, we also have Andrew. Not that Andrew or the other Andrew. This is our new Andrew. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Dorian is so big time. How big time is Dorian? Dorian is so big time. He brought an understudy on with him.
Oh, dear.
Well, that can be useful. And we have assembled this particularly large cavalcade of whatever we are to discuss the Bikeriders.
Yes, indeedy. The Bikeriders is a 2023 American crime drama film written and directed by Jeff Nichols. It stars Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, Tom Hardy, Michael Shannon, Mike Faist, and Norman Reedus. Its plot, such as it is, inspired by the photo book of the same name by Danny Lyon, depicts the lives of the Vandals Motorcycle Club, a fictional version of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club founded in the late 1960s. The Bikeriders premiered at the 50th Telluride Film Festival on August 31st, 2023, and was released in the U.S. June 21st of 2024. Originally scheduled to be released in the U.S. on December 1st by 20th Century Studios, the release was delayed due to the SAG-AFTRA strike. Ultimately, Focus Features acquired the rights from film producer New Regency. All right, so starting with you, Dorian, and kind of making our way in the world today, because it takes everything we got. I see you're not just doing Bret Michaels, but you're doing the whole motorcycle thing. And you and Mac, and presumably the third member of the New World Order who's taking over, are on this podcast because you something about motorcycles. You like motorcycles, motorcycle culture. That's what you're on about. Tell me all about it.
Well, actually, this book is not to be in character. When I had a motorcycle, I was in I was working in Las Vegas, and it was kind of a new chapter in my life, and I adopted this look. The jacket I've had forever, and I slowly but surely did grow into it, but this was the look that I rocked about 10 years ago when I was in Las Vegas. So this is not character. This is from the past. But yeah, Never been in like a motorcycle club like it's shown in this movie, but have ridden with a few people. Got the great chance to ride and film simultaneously with Hell's Angels, doing a charity run about 6 years ago now. I did not look like this at that time because they all would have beaten me up, and that would have been fair. And I would have accepted that as you're an
Hey
idiot.
guys, I'm here to be part of the cool motorcycle. Get out of here! What's wrong with you?
Stupid child.
You want some decent clothing,
Right? The fuck, it's not the 70s anymore, idiot. But yeah, so I mean, I've loved motorcycles for a very long time. I miss mine. I have a funny story about what happened to mine later, but we got a lot of people to get through, so I'm just gonna leave it there.
Okay. Mac, I hear you're into motorcycle culture as well. That's what brought you to the dance, not just that you missed us.
Well, I did miss you, but I'm not sure you could call me a member of motorcycle culture, except in the broadest sense. If you've ever ridden for very long, you'll know that if you pass another rider on a highway, you give them the open hand sign from your right, and that's just everybody who rides. And if you ride more than a few days, you'll see that. About 10 years ago, I rode a Ninja 250, a Kawasaki, and I did that in rebellion against the high gas prices that were destroying everything at the time. And I thought I better just get used to this. So I got my cool helmet, I got my my riding armor, and I look very much like Spaceman Tim on a bicycle because I'm much bigger than the bike. So
You
I
look
loved
like
it though.
you look like a vigilante in an indie movie that they could not afford an actual super suit. So like, hey, this works. He's on a bike. It looks cool. Go with it.
Okay, but in my defense, I had a heads-up display inside my bike, or inside my helmet. I mean, it's just cool. It showed the current
It's funny,
speed. You could get a phone call. It was
What were
wonderful.
you riding a rocket cycle from Tron?
Well, yeah, I wanted that, but my helmet contained more technology than my bike did. So there you go.
That's amazing. I meant to ask you, Dorian, what did you ride?
I had a 1980s Triumph Adventure.
Oh, okay. So
I've always been into older bikes. Like I love the crotch rockets too. I mean, I know that's what they're called, but more sporty bikes. But I always had this love for, like, again, a lot of the ones that were shown in this movie. They had like a class to them that I always liked.
Sure. There's nothing like an American chopper. Andrew, I know that you're here because Dorian wanted you to be a part of our little movie review club as maybe like an ongoing guest. Do you have any history with motorcycles? Are you part of the motorcycle culture at all?
Not really. I have been intrigued by it for a long time. Just the the kind of culture and brotherhood that goes with MCs and just kind of motorcycle riding in general. It's intrigued me for a long time. I've never been a part of it per se, just because life has gone in a million other different directions.
Sure.
But
never been a part of it yet.
Yeah, the operative term is yet. I mean, kind of after seeing this movie and some other life things, it might be going in a different direction. We will see. But no, so really the reason why Dorian had me come and see this film was because I'm actually in a role-playing game where I play as my character a biker.
Oh, dude,
the leader of an MC. So
what's the
he thought this would be intriguing for me to get some, see kind of how that type of character works out on screen. Because when I actually go and move in to start filming that character or directing the person who's going to be playing my character, is like, may as well have a bit more of a visual picture of what that kind of looks like.
What game are you playing?
Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, nice. Gosh, I haven't heard that one in a while.
So I play my character is a Bruja street brawler by the name of Jay.
Perfect.
So.
All right, which brings us to you, my love. I hear you have some family in the motorcycle culture.
I'll leave it to you to decide whether or not my uncle is blood uncle or just close enough to be family uncle. I don't feel like disclosing more than that for a variety of reasons. My dad used to ride. That stopped about the time I was born. But yeah, I do have an uncle who was, I can never keep straight in my head. And if any of the two associated groups I'm about to mention find out that I can't keep them straight in my head all the time, that's going to be that's an unpleasant conversation. But I do have an uncle who was, I think after he got out of the Marines, he joined either the Huns or the Mongols, and I can never remember which one it was.
Okay.
My hunch is always Huns, but again, I can never keep it necessarily straight in my head. And there was a long-standing joke. That's one of those jokes that's not a joke, that if something ever happened to me or one of my brothers, that they'd call my uncle and we'd save the state the hassle of a trial and incarceration.
It's great. Robert and his family of heavies.
What can I tell you? I am adjacent to interesting people, even if I myself do not qualify as such.
So I've never been the driver of a motorcycle. I've ridden bitch on a motorcycle. I was a little kid. My cousin Jim, he had one. I don't remember like what kind. It wasn't like a Harley or anything like that. It was a fairly small bike. But he took me for a ride on it, mostly against my parents' wishes, which that pretty much describes most of my youth. My parents tell me this, I do the exact opposite. But beyond that, I've never really had an association with motorcycle culture. Like I've mentioned a couple of times since we've been reviewing Sons of Anarchy with Jesse and sometimes Ronnie, I was like, I think motorcycles are cool looking and certainly the culture looks cool, but I don't really have too much of a interest in the culture. But I was very much interested in this movie, moving into the actual Bikeriders. June is kind of a weird month, Robert. Like it's like big animated features, maybe an action movie, and then like a lot of independent stuff. Like it's weird that like June sits in the middle of summer blockbuster season, but isn't. It's like May is heavy, July is heavy, and June is it's just whatever. And this particular year, because a lot of stuff got pushed into next year because of either the SAG-AFTRA strike or a particular studio who we won't beat up on today, deciding to take the year off. Whatever the reasons were, the Bikeriders found a slot where it could have a weekend to itself without too much taking the spotlight from it. So it's one of those rare opportunities on this show, which usually just deals with the muck and mire of mainstream features, to delve into something a little bit more off the mainstream. So I'm excited to talk about it. It was definitely a more interesting experience than I expected. I just real quick around the horn with this, and then Robert can get into his plot synopsis. When I told you we were doing the Bikeriders, Dorian, and you insisted on coming on the show, you're like, take me off the horror, boss. I want to talk bikes. What any expectations for the Bikeriders? Had you seen the trailer for it? I'm just curious, when we threw it out there that this was on the schedule and you were welcome to come and talk, what was your first thought?
My first thought was very excited, partially just because of what you said of like, normally I'm on for the horror stuff. And again, I love my horror movies. That's never going to change. But as a director, I do want to, I expanded some of the next things I have up are not horror related that I'm directing and writing. And I also noticed in a way that I'd stopped going to see more dramatic films, more story-based stuff, just because I got so busy. So when you and I talked about this, Mark, I was like, you know what? I've been excited to see this. I saw the trailer, and not just as a writer myself, but also just, the cinematography and how the story looked. And then my research that was based off a photo book from, covering this decade of these people. I was like, man, this sounds like this is going to be, this is going to be very interesting. I was about to say it's going to be a lot of fun, but I knew from the get-go, I'm like, this is not going to be a movie you walk away from going, I'm filled with life and love and hope in the world. And
I'm born again, like when the world was new.
Right.
Yeah, Mac. It's an interesting thing when we're doing this show because especially the last couple of years, and I threw some of this at Alexis's feet, we've really been sort of forced to go outside and look at some movies we may have seen them, not necessarily in theater. We might have seen them like on PVOD or when it comes to streaming. Definitely wouldn't have talked about it before. So I like the fact that we sort of pushed the show in this direction of, like we did like Lisa Frankenstein earlier in the year. We've done, Robert can probably refresh my memory a little bit better. We've done the occasional indie feature on Damn You Hollywood, which has only been the last year or two that we've started to do that. So I'm excited to talk about it when we finally get there. What about you? We threw the Bikeriders at you. What was your thought?
I can't call myself excited about that. No, I was a little boy at the time this culture was actually wandering around. So I actually saw these guys, and they were, except for their bikes, they were an unimpressive lot. And I thought, well, what are they going to do? what are they going to do to jazz this up? And I thought, okay, let's. They had Jodie Comer, they had Austin Butler, they had Tom Hardy. Surely they're going to superpower this. What are they going to do? Owing to the great acting and actually it has to be fairly decent writing, this is nearly a documentary. And these guys they start in a dark and dismal, defeated place, and they stay there the whole movie.
Yeah.
They ride a bike a little bit. A few things happen to exacerbate the condition, and they leave us in the worst possible place they could be, having just been taken over by a murderer who shot their leader.
Yeah, we're going to get into all of that. I have some things to say about the plot of this thing, such as it is.
Yeah. So we're going to agree about that.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, Andrew, anything you want to add as far as expectations of the movie?
Uh-oh.
Oh, did we lose him?
Did he for you?
Yeah, look, he's frozen.
He looks frozen, yeah.
Robert, hit me with that wonderful plot synopsis.
Okay, so the plot of this,
Nuts.
as was previously mentioned, this is structured more like a documentary in a lot of respects. It's told as a series of flashbacks, basically, where different characters that we see are interviewed by a photojournalist or photographer who is writing a book about this particular motorcycle club. And we kind of go back and forth in the timeline. It's mostly in a straight line, but we intersperse two different interviews with our main character is Kathy, played by Jodie Comer. She's the one who gets the lion's share of dialogue and speaking time and whatnot. Mark. But it starts with, again, some of these interviews, and they talk a little bit about the formation of this a fictional Vandals MC, which is based on the real group that is the Chicago Outlaws gang, which is not the biggest of the outlaw biker gangs in the world, but they've got a solid niche, and you tend not to mess around with that too much. And these ultimately, so it starts like, if you actually look into the history of most of these groups, they all kind of start the same. You're either an offshoot of another group, or it's post World War II. People have discovered motorcycles, and a bunch of slightly traumatized, disenfranchised, or slightly disillusioned people are looking for outlets. And this gives them an adrenaline rush. It's relatively cheap, certainly relative to all the cars that are being driven around in the 1940s and 50s. And it's a way to sort of reconnect and reconvene the fraternal order that they had when they were in the military. And that's ultimately how most of these things get started. And that's the story of this one. Our other lead character is not actually Austin Butler. It's Johnny, played by Tom Hardy. And he's the guy who basically founds this enterprise. And it starts, as with most things, it starts kind of small, but it's a lot of people who don't really fit in. They struggle to acclimate to, the mainstream society. Some of them are kind of stuck in the 50s, even though we're now in the 60s. And it's guys getting together to hang out, ride motorcycles, and do what people do when they don't have anything else to do, which is a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, and a lot of mischief. And naturally, this escalates. Kathy is introduced to the guy who you would swear, if you looked at the marketing, is the actual lead character in this movie, and that's Austin Butler's Benny.
But you'd be wrong.
Very.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, but he's so good looking. We don't care.
Fair enough.
Slap that boy's good looks on a poster. We're gonna sell this movie. He's not the star.
We're gonna get a lot of girls.
He's like the third tier down. I said slap him on the poster.
Prominently.
Yes,
So Kathy and Benny wind up getting married. It's a mostly functional relationship. I kept waiting for that one to turn dark, and it never did. But it's the story of this group as it expands, as it goes a little bit sideways with itself, like most of these things do. Time passes, some people die, some people want to leave, then, Vietnam starts ending, and you get the whole wave again of the, traumatized, slightly disillusioned, slightly disenfranchised people not sure what to do with themselves, and this culture of freedom and the removing of authority figures, the lack of responsibility, and let's face it, the kind of cool factor of riding motorcycles wherever you want to go, whenever you want to, attracts another wave of people, and the new people and the old people clash like they always do. And this ends violently for Johnny, who still kind of maintained his position at the top of the hierarchy for a long time, even as more chapters spring up across different cities. Then he's gunned down by a usurper, and the movie ends with Benny and Kathy having moved to Florida, like you do, Mark. And they're trying to just move on with life. She goes through a few of the other people again. Johnny was shot and killed. A couple of guys stuck with the gang as it devolved into more and more wanton criminality. Poor Michael Shannon moved to work on a shrimp boat in Texas and probably ran into Forrest Gump somewhere along the way, is my hunch about how that went.
That sounds about right.
And it ends with this kind of really nice, but nice in the like artistically resonant way, not necessarily a happy way, where Kathy's talking about how, after Johnny was killed, Benny hasn't ridden a whole lot and doesn't really seem to miss it. And we're led to believe that's not exactly true, that part of him is still there. It's just, there's a bit earlier in the movie when she's talking about, I thought I could change him. Like, she actually says, like, most women think they can change a guy. And it took the death of his best friend to do it, but apparently she succeeded. She seems pretty happy by the end of this.
All right, Andrew, go ahead and give us your craft review. What did you think of the various elements that make up this movie?
I mean, overall, I liked it overall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just sat there and I enjoyed it. I thought that the drama between the characters was good. There was a real sense of will they, won't they between Kathy and Benny, because you never see Benny and Kathy together in the interview segments until the very, very end. So you're almost wondering throughout the whole film, did he stay or did he go? Till you realize, oh, they're still together by the end of this. So I thought that was good. I kind of liked how it did kind of explore, all the things that happened, which is could be kind of a social commentary, on kind of what happens when the new comes and takes over the old, and the de-evolution of society that kind of happened everywhere in that Vietnam era. You had the Greatest Generation, and then you had the Vietnam, and then after that you had like millennials and like that. And depending on who you ask, there was definitely a downward slope in this overall society between like the 40s and 50s, and then even now into the 2020s. So, I mean, I like the different elements.
Andrew, half the people on here are either from the generation that's talked about in the movie or they're Gen Xers. Watch what you say.
Hey, he's right.
Hey, I'm
Go
of
on,
this current generation.
Andrew.
I can say nothing. Look, I'm just as much of the chopping block as anyone else.
I'm just fucking with you, dude. Keep going.
But no, so those different elements I thought were really good. I mean, the bike scenes were cool. I enjoyed those. And just overall, I thought it was like they had a very down tone, but I mean, I felt like that fit for the material that it was. And like I wouldn't expect it
At least
to be
the
happy.
aesthetic. They were going for almost documentary style, grainy footage, and so the pacing and the editing lended itself to the aesthetic very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Sebastian Bach, go on. You tell us what you thought of the movie.
Is that me?
Yeah, Duff.
Yeah, that's you.
Yes, Duff McKagan, that's you.
Okay. This movie was an opera, and I was raised in an opera company, so from very much the start, I was like, this is very operatic. I can only name on, I think, one hand all of the operas that end in a happy kind of way. And the two I can remember just right off the bat that most people would know.
Sorry, this is very Bugs Bunny. What did you expect in an opera? A happy ending?
Exactly. So like I remember like Magic Flute and Marriage of Figaro, both have more happier endings. Strangely enough, made by Mozart, who did not have a happy ending. But that's not the point we're talking about today. But no, this was an opera operatic to me, and that's one of the reasons I loved it. The cinematography and the acting alone, just from a straight up craft view as a director, just fantastic. Like I started looking at the shots, especially for some of the longer scenes that they would take and allow them to just ride without there being dialogue. Like we'd still have Jodie Comer kind of starting to narrate, but then that would fall off, and there were whole scenes and whole shots in those scenes where we just see wheat blowing, and then the rest of the bikes would come. You know, it wasn't trying to be constantly throwing something in your face, and I really appreciated that. Since it is an opera, and most operas, like I said, are tragedy, this is a cautionary tale. It's a morality play that both demystifies the biker idea and gangs, and realistically shows what the decline of what that idea was. You know, in every movie, even some of the older ones, and Mr. Kettner and I had talked about this before we saw the movie. He brought up Rebel Without a Cause, and I also thought of The Wild Ones with Marlon Brando. In both those movies, there's still realism to it, but it has this mystical kind of almost pirates, you know, like they did with Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like, yes, we love the Pirates of the Caribbean, those lovable murderers, rapists, and thieves. God bless them all, and let's let our kids dress up as them.
Those wonderful terrorists.
Right. And so this movie really just demystified that, and I absolutely loved that they did that. There are no good guys or bad guys in this movie. There's just people.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was very, very, very special, and it drew me in more, because every movie, you know, we try to have an antagonist and a protagonist, and then, you know, the neutral antagonists, you know, in the middle kind of there. But even the guy who kills Johnny, we get to see a little bit of his backstory, and we're like, you know what? I'm not happy that you killed Johnny, because I actually kind of liked him, but I get you. I don't agree with you, but I get you.
Yeah.
Like even the bartender, who is there like at the start of the movie, and allows Benny to get all beat up. He still allows that beat down to happen. So again, he's not a you know, like, oh, this poor innocent bartender. Like, no, you're a shit too, but we're human, so we're all shits. But yes, as everyone has said pretty much to this point, yeah, we all think that Austin Butler is going to be our lead character, and he wasn't. You know, I love the fact that he was boring as a movie character. And again, as a movie character,
really was.
He's boring. But as a real life person that we're getting to see part of their life, it's like, this is real. Like even all of us here, and I'll probably repeat this, you know, later at the end of my note, is that all of us can be made into interesting main characters or villains.
Let me throw this at you. Let me throw this at you, and feel free to respond to it. If anyone else wants to jump on it, that's fine. We can occasionally, if everyone behaves themselves, kind of have a really small discussion. He gave off a very John Rambo mystique, where he's clearly troubled, kind of mysterious, a bit melancholy, and just something existing under the surface that's about ready to explode.
I would agree. I'd say John Rambo meets James Dean, also from Rebel Without a Cause.
I see a lot more James Dean there. I didn't see Rambo in him at all. He was just, he smoldered a lot, but there was no fire in that guy.
And Rambo carries with him, and because Sylvester Stallone at that point in time when he was trying as an actor could carry such a deep well of like backstory just behind his eyes. I mean, that bit when he's just walking up.
Sadness, because Rambo is a very sad character.
Benny's not sad.
He just doesn't care.
Yeah, and
I think that's when the moment when he breaks down after Johnny's death really shatters that facade, and it's such a quiet, beautiful acting moment for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I'm agreeing with you, Robert. Continue.
No, you're good. Trying to think of the other. This is gonna sound really weird, but I feel like some of the direction he was given here was a little bit like watch early Dirty Harry Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And kind of blend it with not the over the top aspect, but you want to try and like blend that with a little bit of Tom Cruise, like early Tom Cruise, like Color of Money.
The reason why I threw Rambo out there, because again, you think Rambo and you think, you know, muscles, machine guns, and slightly, you know, mildly retarded grin. And I'm thinking First Blood Rambo,
Yes.
where again he's carrying with him a lot of that deep well of sadness. He's carrying with him that trauma, and that's the thing is we don't ever get really Benny's backstory, so we don't know how much, you know, is it trauma, is it is it just mental illness? Like, we don't know what is going on in that guy's head. He is an enigma from the beginning of the story to the end, which I think is an interesting choice.
I can see your Rambo there. I would say that Michael Shannon's character gave me more First Blood Rambo vibe.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Okay.
That's the guy I was waiting to explode.
Yeah.
Michael Shannon, so we're going, it's gonna be so awesome when he does.
waiting for Zod to come out.
I will find him.
I just want to make sure Andrew has a way into the conversation. Did you want to throw something in, Andrew? You can say no, but I wanted to, if you had something and just couldn't figure a way in, now's your chance.
I think he's frozen again.
Yeah, looks like he's died.
Moving on.
That poor guy.
Moving on, Dorian.
Okay, when he'll I'm sure he'll want to come back on this podcast. I'll make sure that his video's fixed for next time. I apologize. We did do a test ahead of time and everything seemed fine, but
yes, we did.
It's not a live show without technical issues.
You're gonna need to get the squirrels holding his internet together to fucking function.
Right? I just didn't bring over enough acorns.
There he is.
That was on me. You know, I should have packed more acorns, and that's on me.
All right,
but continuing character arcs, the lead character of this, obviously Tom Hardy. Johnny's character arc was just fantastic.
You're insane. The lead character was Jodie Comer, but go on.
She's the narrator.
Yeah.
I love Johnny's character arc, and he slowly became my favorite character. His death hit, like, I was sitting right next to Andrew. I don't know if Andrew caught it, but I jumped because, like, part of me as a filmmaker goes, I think I know what's coming, because the scene just previous with him and Jodie Comer talking, that's very much a very cinematic, the game's over conversation, you know, and I'll be seeing you on the other side of Jordan kind of thing. It still got me because that character became lovable.
Yeah.
He wasn't perfect, but he was human. And you're like, I've known some people, you know, especially when I did work in Vegas and I was riding a bike, I knew some people that, you know, were like Johnny. Right. And you gravitated towards them because they were a good person. They weren't egotistical. They were human. They had their flaws, but, you know, they were good at heart. And I love how his character arc goes from a guy who just likes bikes and is inspired by, again, watching the Wild Ones with Marlon Brando. And he likes racing his bike and he wants to put together this club. And he just wants to hang with like-minded people. And he basically goes from that guy to kind of a low-level crime lord without even wanting it. I love the conversations he has with Benny, Austin Butler's character, where he's like, you know, I can't run this forever. It's you. And then about, you know, 15 to 20 minutes later in the movie, he's like, I can't do this anymore. It's got to be you. And then when Benny walks away, Johnny's like, well, shit, I'm kind of stuck. And it eventually led to his death, but he does try to get out. It's like he sees the way the ship's pointing and he doesn't want to be on the bridge when it happens. He doesn't want to be captaining this group when it happens. But when Benny walks away, he's like, you know what? I've made a promise to all these people and I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be who I am if I just threw up my hands and walked away. So, I already said that. Yeah, and this has already been said, but I love the use of the documentarian character as kind of us. Mm-hmm. They didn't give him that much to do, which I liked because it kind of felt like we were supposed to be that character. I might have attached to him more as a photographer and as someone who, you know, records and films stuff.
Let me jump in here. And my favorite scene in this movie is when he's interviewing Michael Shannon, and Michael Shannon's like, what are you doing? You ready to book? What are you doing?
You did it again. You jumped my nose.
Just, again, working in mental health, having to interview people for a living, having done this for 20 years, I've talked to one or two people, and the occasional angry reaction to anything I'm asking them, I'm like, that was a very real moment for me. I'm just like, oh God. And it was played really, really well. And the kid playing him, he was just in Challengers. I recognize him after the fact. He does a really, really great job of not making himself the story. Yeah, he is absolutely doing the best job as a documentarian. This actor playing that character,
a journalist doing journalism instead of whatever we've got today.
It's worth repeating in the year of our Lord 2024, considering, you know, journalists tend to make themselves the center of the story and not, you know, the person bringing you the story. So I want to give credit where credit's due. I love that scene. I wanted to interrupt you just to say that much. The Michael Shannon interaction with him is so because again, you guys were saying it before. Michael Shannon looks like any minute now in any part of this film he's going to snap and kill everybody, and there was a palpable, menacing fear between the two of those guys. It's great.
Absolutely, and again, one of my favorite lines of the movie is from that after he gets done just ripping college people apart, and he looks down at the guy, and goes, "So what do you do?" "I study photography in college." And I love how Michael, like, that's the moment where you think Michael Shannon is going to snap and like punch this kid. And I love how he just kind of drops his head and looks back up and just kind of shakes and smiles like, he got me. Fair play to the kid. He got me.
Like you expect Michael Shannon to spit glass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounded like a throwdown moment. Oh, really? But no, nobody's going to do it.
And just on funny moments before I get into the tail end of my notes here.
Yeah.
I thought it was so hilarious, and I talked with Mr. Kettner about this after we got out of the movie. I guess I should start calling him Mac, because if I keep calling him Mr. Kettner, he's like, who the fuck is Mr. Kettner?
I'm not going to know who you are. Yeah, it says Mac.
But I was talking to Mac about this. Like, I loved when oh God, please remind me his name. He plays Daryl in Walking Dead.
Norman Reedus.
Thank you, Norman Reedus. Norman Reedus shows up on the bike. I'm looking for the crossbow. I'm like,
yeah, I thought, is that the guy? Yeah, it is.
And it's like he's on the bike. He's got the same look. I mean, his the teeth prosthetics, the makeup on all of them, and making them look, very subtly aging over a decade, but also just the teeth that they put on Norman Reedus, who still at this time is kind of a older heartthrob because of Walking Dead for a lot of people. I love that they didn't go the I'm just dashingly handsome route. It's like, no, his teeth are awful, and no, you are not wanting to make out with this person. But Andrew, yeah, go ahead.
Well, just I want to jump into something because we're talking about kind of character dynamics and interactions. One thing I thought that was good about kind of the movie as a whole was how it kind of captured almost men as a character.
Yeah.
Especially men of that time frame.
Hang on. I haven't done this in a while, but I want to give Andrew their special credit.
See, Mark, I bring
Good job.
You did good. But no, that something, Andrew, you tapped into something that it's becoming a theme on the Radulich podcast in general, is how men in modern Hollywood are very misrepresented, mischaracterized, and it's nice when a modern movie in the year of our Lord 2024 actually says, "This is men, warts and all." It's nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, like, one of my favorite scenes is at the part when the two bike gangs interact with each other, and it starts off, and like, hey, you keyed my bike, man, you scratched it, and they're just absolutely getting into it, massive brawl, teeth going everywhere, blood, punches, and then 10 seconds later, everyone sat down having a great time. It almost captures that feeling of, like, sometimes all guys need to do is just beat the crap out of each other, and then shake hands afterwards.
So real quick, Patton Oswalt was talking about he had a girl at the same time that many of his friends were having boys. And he was noticing that when boys play, they'll fight, they'll punch each other, they'll cry, and then they make up and they go back to playing again.
Boys are all about punch.
Yeah. Girls
are all, I'm building a box.
Yeah, well,
you don't know what it is until you're inside of it.
Yeah, that was very much the Patton Oswalt bit. It was like girls are much more insidious, and then he goes into this whole bit about his daughter and hair, and like she drew her friend with no hair. He was like, "What the fuck is this?
What is this Sicilian message? Just hit each other."
Right. Okay.
I wasn't trying to interrupt you, boss. That's just one of my favorite things. So I had it like it's memorized.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We can have fun here. So far, everyone's behaving. I'm running
so far.
So far. I don't know if there was anything else, Andrew. If not, I'm going to go back to Dorian to finish up.
Well, I just want to say that another cool scene was like the one that he mentioned with when Benny breaks down.
Yeah.
Of the idea, like the guy's supposed to be strong, sturdy, part of the relationship. But there's times just when something so bad happens that you just crack.
Sure.
And I just love that they showed that, like, yes, this can happen.
Absolutely.
They really
wrap up so we can get the Mac.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm going to actually just really quick bounce off what you said. They actually set that scene up so beautifully with Jodie Comer earlier when she talks about, my dad said, a man never cries, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I only saw my dad cry once when, his dad died and my mom almost died. So they really set that up perfectly.
Mhm.
Wrapping up, I was glad they didn't go with the revenge storyline after Johnny was killed. It was set up so perfectly that Benny could have gone on a revenge kick of, finding this new douchebag leader and, putting a bullet in his head, but they didn't do that. And I as much as I, as an audience member was like, no, I want revenge for Johnny, I was like, no, realistically, that may not have happened. And I think that was beautifully done on them. I love Johnny's Marlon Brando kind of thing. It is still a Chicago accent, but you could see a little bit of Hardy letting Brando come out because the character's inspiration came from the Wild Ones. And I like that he very lightly treaded that razor's edge.
I tell you, I just watched The Dark Knight Rises with my son, who thought it was the dumbest thing he'd ever seen, by the way. His exact quote was, all of this was dumb and what wasn't done was boring.
Right.
Future leader Jonas Radulich. But all I could, every time Tom Hardy talks, I would slip between his Eddie Brock and his Bane.
Right.
Yeah.
We
I
are
tried
the
to pick it out
Butler.
too. Couldn't.
I am your reckoning, Austin Butler.
Right. No one who cared who I was until I got on the bike. But very quick question for you, Mark. I know sometimes when we have less people, we do a one last time around with our wrap-up thoughts, but with the more people, are we not going to do that this time?
We can.
Okay.
I want to hear what Mac's craft thoughts are, and Robert.
Yeah, so that's the end of my craft review. I give the movie a very solid A-.
Okay. Mac, your craft thoughts.
This is going to be fun.
Sit there and admire me for a minute. Okay, I as a thespian, as an actor, as a guy who appreciates theater, the production quality is astonishing. It's wonderful. I live in the Midwest, and they shot that thing on streets and environments I have seen. There were two places where I actually thought they might have been in Kansas City. So the costuming is perfect. The acting is way above board. The writing was kind of constrained to the fact that this was basically a documentary, and they had already decided they weren't going to glorify these guys too much. So I'm going to give them a break there. But what I will never understand, as long as I live, why do you make a movie like this? Why do you harness the best actors, the best production, the highest the money outputs, the best sets and everything? What is the point of this as a cinematic event? I think what they decided was, we want to make a documentary. We want to represent this to the world. We want them to see that, but no one's going to watch it unless we get Tom Hardy in the main seat and Austin Butler and Jodie Comer, and we jazzed it up a little bit. And then they didn't actually do that. This is pointless. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's wonderful. It's
I'm so glad you're here tonight, Mac. I really am. Like that. I sincerely. Thank you for saying that out loud.
I said this to Dorian that night. It's a little bit like someone hired Leonardo da Vinci to paint a bathroom. I mean, you could do it. You could do it, and he could paint a bathroom. But why? Why apply all this talent to this desperately dull, depressingly boring thing, and then not do anything except what is clearly what really happened? Be realistic. I don't get it.
I took the entire week from Friday, or to the entire weekend from Friday to now, because we had dinner after the movie was over, and he asked these same questions of me. He's like, okay, you're a filmmaker, you're probably going to want to make films like this. Why do you do it? And at the time, I was still kind of coming off the movie, and I couldn't give him an answer. In my wrap up, I've got your answer. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah. Let's hear this.
No. Later, there's other people who talk.
I just want to say this: we have a lot of people on the panel tonight, so I'm going to keep my comments brief. I hope this gets a nomination for Best Cinematography. It deserves it.
God, yes.
I don't know if it
Yes, absolutely.
It's hard to know that until we've seen what the other options are.
The fact that this movie looks as good as it does on a budget so much smaller than something like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes means it should be recognized for its greatness in that respect.
But its use of the green, its use of the filter.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was shot on actual 35mm film or if this was shot digitally, but it comes across like it was shot on traditional film. which
Yes.
it's a huge. I mean, like it's one of those, and I don't know if you've ever like talked to this person and then want to punch them right in the solar plexus, but it's the kind of film that says you should listen to Pink Floyd's The Wall on vinyl. It's so much better than CD or cassette, and it's like shut the fuck up. Except that it's true, and you don't want to admit that, but there's something to the traditionally shot movie on film versus digital. And whatever it was they did here, whatever alchemy they used, they made it look like it was film. And it took me back to my favorite era of films, which was the 70s, believe it or not. So from a pure aesthetic, from a visual point of view, I absolutely adored this movie. If I only had to judge it on the visuals and the style in which it was shot, it would be in my top 10. Unfortunately, there were 3 other legs on the stool. Jodie Comer, I don't know if she's going to get a nomination for Best Actress, but so far she's my favorite. She gives my favorite performance of a female in a movie this year. She's fucking phenomenal in this thing.
I'm with you
Yes.
there, actually. Of everything we've seen thus far, she would be top of my list right now.
Yeah, she is. She never loses her accent. This is something Robert and I have talked about with other films. Some of these actresses can't hold their accent, and the directors seem to be so frustrated with it they just don't care. They're just like whatever. So sometimes sometimes Anna de Armas sounds like she's from Wisconsin, and sometimes she doesn't. Who cares? No one cares. Let's just move this on. And here they took great pains. She took great pains to be very consistent with her accent. And you might think, as a professional actress, like that goes without saying. Yeah, watch as many films as I do and see it done poorly. It's not as easy as you think these days.
Dude, accents are hard in
a
general.
Character with a Romanian accent in a live action game, I can tell you from experience, it is very, very hard.
Yes, exactly. But she was great. And I'll tell you, it's so funny to me because Jodie Comer is both absolutely a revelation, just amazing, and also the most annoying bitch I've ever seen captured on film.
Now that's unfair, and you know
Wait a minute. Where'd we get annoying bitch?
I've never wanted to both adore and punch somebody at the same time.
Okay.
I see
Why do you want to punch her?
Coming from. She has a propensity in her dialogue, and this is also what makes it very real. Is she'll keep repeating things.
Yeah,
now, people do that in real life.
But you've keyed into a pet peeve of mine. I don't particularly like repetition. It's why, in given a choice of athletic things, would I rather lift weights or would I rather do martial arts? I would rather do martial arts. I hated lifting weights because I hated the repetition of it. I struggle with like note writing from my job because I don't like repetition. I have to do a lot of like copy paste. And when I hear people talk and they're repeating themselves 2 or 3 times, I have to stop myself from saying, I got it the first time. It aggravates the living shit out of me. And that's a third of her dialogue. Is her repeating.
Oh, yeah.
Give or take, yeah.
And
well, she also gets into that very nasal Chicago
voice
that has been mocked, for years.
Yeah, everything about her sounded like
comedy here at
everything about her sounded like the relatives I grew up with on Long Island, and I wanted to knock them out of chairs too. Like, oh my god, just annoying people.
I thought her repetition was kind of a piece of her character, though. She didn't have a lot to say. She wasn't terribly deep. She was trying to be, and she wound up just repeating herself.
Mac, so you don't misunderstand me. I love that as a character choice. I hate that as an aspect of one's personality.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's like I can objectively look at something and I can separate my own pet peeves from what is an objectively good performance. Her performance is superb. I'm struggling with it as Mark because I hate that kind of person.
So she did too good a job, is what you're saying.
Pretty much. On a chalkboard.
When we make Mark's movie, he keeps talking about make sure one character repeats self over and over.
I will not be there on set. I will be absent that day.
You know what? If you make the character who does that like the heavy for the villain, Mark will be very happy.
Yeah. In fact, we should kill him in the middle of a repetition.
I didn't
Dorian,
get
we'll,
to say
Dorian,
it
we'll just
again.
bring Jack from Minnesota.
All right, so I didn't read her other comment because sometimes I don't want to stop the show cold to just read comments, but this one's really funny. It's like that cousin at the family dinner that keeps saying, "No, man, you don't understand." I ran a group once, and this one kid who was clearly illiterate kept saying, "You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?" It's like, we don't. You're a moron. Anyway, Tom Hardy is the least mushmouth I've ever seen in this movie, which was nice.
You are just profoundly unfamiliar with his body of work. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. There were a couple of early films that you think we should do a triple feature on that I've never seen.
I have never made that argument to you. I've just said you're lacking an understanding of his ability because there's a bunch of stuff of his you haven't seen. That's the sum total
What I
of my
have
point.
seen of Tom Hardy, in all fairness, he is most of the time unintelligible. This was the most intelligible I've ever seen. Probably the only time his the tenor of his voice didn't grate on my nerves. I want to second what Mac was saying, and then I'm going to pass it over to Robert. I walked out. I saw this with Jen, and we both kind of looked at each other. There was some silence as we left the movie, as I think we were both processing it. And I thought, this is one of those movies people are going to get mad at me for not liking. And it's not like I don't like the movie, like it's a bad movie. There's clearly a lot about it that is very good. It's going to end up being on a lot of people's top 10s this year.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't get away from what Max said, and that's the center leg on the table, and that is this thing has almost no plot. And what is shown as quote unquote the action of the movie is thoroughly uninteresting. There are moments in the movie that are tense. You know, Jodie Comer nearly being raped. That's one. The stuff with Michael Shannon. I had a very visceral reaction to the shovel going into Austin Butler's ankle. But
yeah, that'll do it.
For me, it was
finger breaking scene.
Yeah, it was for me. It was like
that didn't bother me. I don't know why. Small joint manipulation, not a thing for me.
For me, it was a collection of moments strung together by a very strong 2-hour monologue by Jodie Comer. But I don't know. To the question, why do you make this movie? You make this movie because you have a passion for that era of bike riding. That's why you make it. Like there's this picture book I saw. What I saw in it is beautiful, and I want to share it with the world. That's why you make this movie. And it definitely comes across as one of those things where no one else gets why you like this one as much as you do. And there's nothing in this movie that brings you over. You're either there or you're not. This movie, and this is probably my biggest issue with this movie, it does nothing to bring the people who aren't there. It just kind of acknowledges, like, it's here, thing. Either you like thing or you don't like thing. And I think I went into it with way too high expectations, and maybe upon the second or third viewing without those expectations, I'll have a better view of it so Robert doesn't, eat me up. But
Mark, of all the things I might physically assault you over, this movie is not on that list.
Before I throw it to Robert, that's kind of where I stand with it. I think it's a beautifully made movie and a beautifully acted movie, but ultimately, the thing that should have brought me along, the plot of it, the message of this movie didn't get me to where the movie's intended destination was. And I would say that's a failure of the movie. What do you think, Robert?
I don't think you're wrong. I'm
just leaving this up here for the rest of the show.
Thank you, Shay.
I find movies like this interesting and at a bare minimum as a case study, because I'm going to sound like such a pretentious jackass with the following sentiment, so please nobody pillory me over this.
You a pretentious jackass? Shit, somebody write this down. This day will go down in history.
Be nice to him. Don't bully my friend.
No, because again, the old joke is you're the dad driving the car, he's the bitchy yoga mom, I'm the kid in the background. This is just my kid rebellion phase where I start bitching at mom.
Okay, be nice to your mother before I let her beat you. Go on, Robert.
Andrew, that has you and me in the trunk.
Yeah, just kind of getting dragged along for the ride.
Hey, you guys were hitchhiking. We didn't have any more seats.
Only I get to abuse Robert. Nobody else does. Everyone.
I see.
I love you, Robert. I just had to give you crap.
No, you're good. We've picked up 2 hitchhikers. I don't know which Texas Chainsaw movie that puts us in, but it's one of them.
Yeah.
But there's a weird push and pull with the entire sort of exercise that is creation of movie, creation of film, creation of stage plays, whatever. You are trying to get at the most human experience in the most inhuman setting possible. And it's this weird dichotomy between that. And when it works at its best, it's great. And I'm not here to knock anything, but movies like this tend to take this weird sort of twist on things where let's take a lot of talent and let's do nothing but try to recreate things as authentically as possible, absent the narrative framework of your traditional film structure or even story structure, since we're being honest about it. And they're very experimental frequently, and they tend to struggle.
I want to throw something in here because it goes along with what you're saying, and I'm going to keep this extremely brief so I don't fuck up your flow. The right way to do this was Casino.
Okay, I don't think you're...
Or Goodfellas.
Ooh.
I don't think you're wrong. For the record, I don't think you're wrong. The flip side to that is because if we've got on the one end like nothing but pure fantasy, and on the other end we've got nothing but the strict documentary. This one's very close to the middle in that it tries to be dramatized versions of events. It's sort of the minor flip side of the other thing that's on just like the very other side of that middle spectrum, which is the documentary that presents itself as real, and I don't mean mockumentary here, by the way. The documentary that presents itself as real, but is highly staged. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's any number of these things out there. What was the big one that got exposed is the wrong word, but there's a very famous couple that did a lot of like photography and videography for volcanic eruptions.
Oh, yeah.
And it came out that they staged, reshot, redid a lot of what they did for that. And I mean, if you want to hear someone articulate the point better than I can, look up Werner Herzog talking about it, because I'm never going to be able to touch what that guy said.
Can any of us?
True.
He's Werner Herzog. That's kind of his thing.
It really is. And this movie, it's a weird sort of experiment in that space of we're just trying to recreate life as faithfully as possible to the point where the plot is kind of left out, because whose life has a plot? And it's not my favorite thing in the world. That is not my favorite way to tell a story or to experience a series of events, but I think that's kind of what they were aiming for. And I agree with you, Mark, that this is not a movie that is going to invite you into it. It's a movie that you either are interested in or you are not, and it kind of just says, take it or leave it. The star for me, you guys already mentioned the cinematography, 1,000,000%. The acting, you go to see this movie for the acting. I can't say enough good things about Tom Hardy in this. He stole Jodie Comer was an exercise in, believe it or not, subtle acting. Because I've seen this kind of character be over the top many times. Yeah. And she resists that urge, thankfully, because if she goes that far over the top, you get someone that nobody wants to watch ever. And she doesn't quite go that far. But Tom Hardy is a wonderful study.
As you say, you get Melissa McCarthy from The Kitchen.
I'll take your word for it. I managed to dodge that particular bullet. Thank you very much.
It was terrible.
Well said.
You did a comic strip on that because you thought it would be good.
Sure did.
We all make mistakes.
We do. But there's a couple of moments in particular for Tom Hardy that I need to highlight. The obvious one, his delivery of the line "burn the bar down" is such a afterthought. Like, you mean you didn't think of that?
Yeah.
Like, burn the bar down. And then when they're sitting out there watching it burn, and his friends are like, "You got to get out of here," and he just looks to his left and sees the fire engine waiting. Looks to his right, sees a cop car and another fire engine waiting. And A badly executed version of what happens here is the guy who realizes I have ultimate power. It's mustache twirly. His declaration that no, we don't have to go. They're afraid of us. It carries weight because, and you can argue whether or not this is stating the obvious when Jodie Comer immediately says that scared him. His performance should convey that. We shouldn't need the narration, but you've also got the narration, so you may as well use it. Conveying that sentiment is very difficult, the fear that comes with the power one wields. Because most people who get that kind of power are either terrified of it and run away, or are maniacs who've always wanted it and only want more. And Johnny as a character and Hardy as an actor tread that very fine line between loyal, just ambitious enough, like he's not here by accident, and cognizant of this is not a guy opening Pandora's box lightly. Like he realizes at different points, oh, I'm in over my head. Oh no. How do I fix this?
I want to throw something really quick in, Robert. You said that there's usually two people who are scared of it or people who are always like that. I'd like to add a third level of the people who get sucked into it and start reveling in that power, even into the darkness, because they believe if they use that power correctly, they can do something better.
Also true. That is the other kind.
Parts, as opposed to them succeeding. So, sorry, please continue.
No, you're good. That's why I always struggle to vote for people who pursue the office of President of the United States, because if you actually want that job, you have not thought hard enough about what that entails.
Oh, very well said. Yes.
That's my litmus test for whether or not I take your political opinion seriously. I ask, would you be president if you got the chance? Anyone who says yes, I can dismiss you more or less.
Yep. That particular line that Tom Hardy delivered, they're afraid of us. There was just the littlest bit of, I'm kind of surprised at this.
Yeah, he's not puffing his chest up. It's like, how did I find myself here? A little bit like record scratch.
How did we get here?
Yeah. What led us to this point? He's almost even in his eyes going back over everything going, I was racing. I talked to a friend about starting a club, and somewhere between there and here, they're afraid of us.
Yeah. One of my favorite acting thing that he did, and it's very subtle. After the minor brawl at the picnic, when they meet up with those other guys, and he grabs Austin Butler, who started the whole fracas.
Yeah.
And says, what were you doing? What were you thinking? You just started that, and you got a piece of shard stuck 2 inches into a glass in 2 inches into your hand. Like, what were you thinking there? And Butler's response is typical of that character. He says, I saw you squared up with those guys. What do I have to think about? And Tom Hardy's face is what he's asking. He's, eyebrows up, like, hey, come on, you're my friend. Like, what are you doing here? And he gets the answer, and he doesn't shift dramatically, but there's this softening of the brows. And the way he delivers his next line, too, it's that moment when you really realize the guy you're next to, and that's the guy that's going to have your back no matter what. His moment of realization for that, it's so subtle, I don't mean to... There's a line from Ian McKellen at one point. This was pre-Lord of the Rings. He had done a movie with Brendan Fraser called
Gods and Monsters.
Thank you, Gods and Monsters. Somebody asks Ian McKellen during an interview, during like the news cycle for this. You've been on the stage forever. You're a well-respected theater actor. You're Ian McKellen. What do you want next? Like, what are you going to try to do? And he thinks and he goes, I want to be as good a movie actor as Brendan Fraser. Now, bear in mind, this is pre-Whale Brendan Fraser. And everybody looked at him kind of funny, like, what do you mean? Like, you're this Shakespearean powerhouse.
Right.
And you want to be Encino Man? Yeah, and you want to be Encino Man. Like, what are we doing here? And his point is, when you act on the stage, you have to act to the back of the theater. Like, you have to act to the nosebleeds. Same thing in professional wrestling. When you throw a punch, you throw it so the guy way up in the background can see that thing coming at the other guy. When you're on screen, that shot is 6 inches from your face, give or take. You don't need all that. everything has to be subtle. Everything has to be minimal because it comes across on screen better. I mean, two other examples of that, if you don't mind, very briefly. Because he passed very recently, Bernard Hill, the guy who played Theoden in Lord of the Rings. I might be misremembering his name. He's also the captain in the Titanic. And James Cameron was talking not long after his passing about how I kept wanting him to give me bigger reactions during this shooting of some of these scenes, like when they all realize the ship's gonna sink, and he's kind of pushing Bernard Shaw to give him a better reaction, like give me something bigger. And then he'd watch the dailies and, oh, I don't need to. It's all here. It's all in his eyes. He is giving me everything I'm asking for. He's just not being big about it, and it works better that way. I think Al Pacino said the same thing when he was filming Insomnia with Christopher Nolan at one point, because that's early in Nolan's career. And Nolan's giving him direction at one point, and Pacino says, I know what you're asking. You can't see it here, but when you watch the dailies, I'm doing what you're telling me. Then he watched the dailies, and lo and behold, Al Pacino was right. Who'd have thought? Guy knows what he's talking about at that point.
So back to Tom
but
Hardy.
that's when you have to have a real director in charge.
Yeah.
Because if you got one guy being vaudevillian and super big and somebody else being masterfully subtle, that's not going to gel well on screen.
No.
So I'm sure Dorian can speak to this. You have to shoot that in a way that shows it,
You know
or you
what's
have
funny?
to back off for the vaudeville.
How often
Absolutely.
we've seen that in modern films where you don't have a director who really has a hold of any given scene or any production that he's doing, and he's just kind of letting the
Walking
actors do line readings. And one actor, as you're saying, is being vaudevillian, and the other one is being camera subtle, and he doesn't know that those two things don't go together. He's just it's the kind of actor that only focuses on the action, and it's just like whatever the actors give me is fine. Let's just move on to the next thing. Speaking of moving on, go ahead, Robert.
So Tom Hardy, just wonderful acting here, pretty much start to finish. Nails
agreed.
the accent, which is also very difficult. Want to give a bit of my favorite funny scene in this movie, because there's a few of them. Not too surprising, involves Norman Reedus. When he's sitting around talking with them, and they say, what are you doing here? You came in from California, you're way out here in Illinois. What's up? And he points at Boyd Holbrook and says, he never turned in his colors from my old gang. They sent me out here to mess him up. And there, once again, you get that moment of tension.
And just the camera pans around to kind of everyone's
Yeah.
faces, and everyone just very slightly gets a little tense, like, oh crap, here we go
Sits
again.
up a little bit.
And, well, one of them asks, like, well, are you gonna? And Norman gives you that half-second pause. Nah. I like you guys. Think I'll hang out here. And then the tension diffuses, but that one moment, and it's appropriately set up.
I think he just made him shit his pants.
Yeah, the follow-up is great.
No, but I'm smelling something.
But that's appropriately set up, because after he gets there and he's introducing himself and want to be here, like to hang out with you guys for a bit. A couple of the other guys, because the Vandals at this point are still not the biggest club in the world, and what he's and what Reedus's character is basically a Hell's Angel. Like, he's not wearing that patch or anything, but you're a club out of California. Like, that's kind of what we're doing here. Is what he's meant to be. And one of them just looks at the other guy and says, "Can you imagine 1,000 guys like that?" Like, that could go real bad in a hurry if things go sideways.
My favorite funny scene isn't funny. The interviewer throughout the movie uses a reel-to-reel tape recorder, which is something I actually had. Did anyone else notice it?
Yeah,
There's
I did. I had one of those growing up too.
When you actually use them, you have to feed the tape in, and it always sticks up out of the spigot, so it's always turning with these little rabbit ears on it. Well, there's one scene where you don't see rabbit ears because they forgot to load tape into the recorder. I promise you, it's there. I can't remember which one it was, but I had to cover my mouth because no one else was laughing at that.
I absolutely believe you. I think, just to kind of close up my thoughts on this, this does a great job. There's a great feel to a lot of this movie about, especially the middle portion, what it is like to have the camaraderie that these guys have when it's done, when the motivation is pure and you have the right people around you. And, to just be out in the world, maybe engaging in stuff you shouldn't be, but knowing you've got 5, 10, 15 guys that are going to have your back no matter what, that's an empowering sense of self. And the movie gives you a pretty good feel for that, even if it's not something you've ever personally experienced. Once again, beautiful cinematography. Love the acting by Hardy and Comer should both get some nominations out of this when it's all said and done. I don't know exactly what for, but wonderful work from them. Love the supporting cast. Yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head. Like, these are real people brought to life on screen. And that's really hard to do. That bit at the end when they do the montage of the actual pictures from the book, and I know who all of them are. Like, none of these people are one-to-one recreations, but all the costuming is right. The attitudes are all right. Like, oh, that's that guy. That's that guy. That's that guy. And there's not much of a if what we're trying to do is recreate a degree of real life, you can't give much of a higher compliment to a lot of the technical side of it than that. Like, I can look at a picture of the real guy and know who the actor was portraying. So,
yeah, I got the same sense.
In that respect.
Absolutely.
All right. Just want to do a quick around the horn for everybody. Make sure everyone got everyone gets their shit in. So I'll wait for him to come back. So Dorian, really quick, like in 20 words or less, your final thoughts, any burning desires?
Final thoughts are, Matt brought this up. Why make a movie like this? Well, I want to answer that. You also said it yourself, Mr. Radulich. This just seems like a collection of moments. Well, that's life. Life is just a collection of moments. We live in a world now that is more visual than it is reading books and stuff like that. This story was told because the people behind it believed in it. They wanted it told. And who are we to disagree with that? Each of us here in this podcast right now has a story that happened in our lives that we would love to have on the big screen, whether it's funny, whether it's sad, depressing. However, you can stop shaking your head. I can see you. And those things make a great movie.
Yeah.
Whether told to fact or embellished, they can fit in many genres. But the thing is, and I've said this before on many reviews, and this is the end of my thing, is if you don't like it, cool. Go make your own. Because nobody's going to make the story that you want to see better than you.
Wait till you see the story of the last 2 years of my life, Dorian. It's going to be great. It's going to be $1 million movie.
Film that.
We'll
Get Dorian to do that.
Let's do this thing.
Oh yeah, I have all kinds of scenes in mind. Andrew, burning desires, final thoughts, a recipe for crab cakes. What do you got for me?
Honestly, I kind of think it was a movie for particular people, and it hit that on the head. And if it kind of wasn't your thing, you didn't have burning desire to see that, it probably would fall flat for you. I mean, something I said earlier when I was frozen, I didn't get to say, it was like, I was told there would be bikes. I got bikes. I'm happy.
This movie delivered.
It's almost like it was like a stripped down, not so much impactful version of maybe Goodfellas or even Top Gun. It's like, if you are really into gangsters or that era, if you're really into fighter pilots and their whole world, you're going to love that movie or those movies. If it's not your thing, you're going to walk out being like, that was a waste of $15. So right. As being someone who's intrigued by that world and who loves experiencing the feel of like classic MC stuff, I loved it. But if I knew a guy who was like, dude, this motorcycles ain't my thing, I just don't like him, I would probably not suggest this movie to them.
That's fair. All right,
niche filmmaking has positives and negatives.
Matt Kettner, take me home, baby doll.
For me, it's different because I've lived a long time. I've seen the lifespans of these people. They always start in a ditch and they dig a deeper hole. That happened. So as a realism, yay. As well executed, yay. But as our fan said, it's fantastic. It's important. I hated it. I'm sorry. This does not serve cinema. I don't know why they made it, but it was absolutely well done.
All right. I don't know why they did this, but well done is the phrase that pays here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. So All right. For new people, old people, people in between, for blue people. The next thing that we do is we talk about the budgets, the finances. We make some projections. We talk a little bit of news. That's our money segment. Stay on, dip out, tune in, tune out, drop in, drop off, whatever you want to do. But here it is, folks. My favorite part of the show, and I don't care about the rest of you, is the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
All righty. On a budget of 30 to 40 million, so we'll go 40 million on the high end. At the time of this recording, we are at 14 million. In the US and Canada, the Bikeriders were released alongside The Exorcism and Thelma, Missing Louise, and was projected to gross 8 to 10 million from a little under 3,000 theaters in its opening weekend, and ended up debuting 9.7 million, finishing in third behind the holdovers Inside Out 2, which is burning down the house, and Bad Boys Ride or Die. All right, so sure this is showing up on screen. Yes, it is. Okay, cool. All right, Inside Out, number one for a second weekend in a row. Holy shit, Robert Winfree. Holy shit.
We accurately predicted that. It wasn't that hard to guess either. Real story is how minimal the drop is. Like, that's only a 30% drop. That's a remarkable hold these days.
This is like a Shawn Michaels-esque kip up for fucking Pixar and Disney. Because, I mean, like, we have been, I think, brutally honest, but also brutally harsh on both studios. And we went into, and let's not be dishonest or, intellectually dishonest. We going into Inside Out, we didn't think it was going to be a big hit, and it is exceeding expectations by a large margin.
Yep.
This is pretty phenomenal, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I talked about that last week with you guys, but it's striking a chord with people who I think are just desperate for inoffensive entertainment they can bring their kids to and not be pissed off. And I mean, like, credit where credit's due. If that's what it takes to succeed now, God bless you.
Not wrong. Speaking of bless you and giving the people what they want, we have Bad Boys Ride or Die holding at number 2, which the success of that movie, I'm convinced, is down to the fact that there's a bunch of people who are looking for dumb popcorn action movies, and we haven't had those in quite a while.
But also recognizable because we had The Fall Guy and everyone turned their nose up at it. I don't know why, but it's like I'm only going to see stuff that I recognize and I remember was good the last time I saw it. Well, there's only one of those movies this year, and that's Bad Boys.
I figured out, I think, what the problem is with Fall Guy, believe it or not.
What is the problem with Fall Guy, Robert Winfree?
It's too inside baseball.
Yeah.
It's a movie about a movie being made and a silly action premise set around that spends a lot of time on the making of movies. I don't have a problem with that, but
we are not in an era where people give a shit about movie making anymore. The mystique is gone, and at this point, we've actually turned a corner. We're more aggravated at these people more often than not.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a miss there. Like, there's a time period when you release The Fall Guy, and it's a pretty substantial hit, which is not there right now.
2017 through 2019, you release The Fall Guy. I think it does big business, depending on.
It's fine. Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
You don't throw it up against a Marvel movie. Now with the backlash such as it is, I think it's struggling to find an audience. Obviously, it's already PVOD. You know what else is PVOD this week? Fucking Furiosa. What a miss that was.
I had to yell at somebody on Twitter about that.
Yeah.
Some poor misguided fool saw that it has now grossed worldwide $168 million or 186, and like, hey, that's its budget. It's in the green, and I facepalmed. And immediately had to do the you don't understand how this works. Theaters take a cut of ticket sales. You have to double your budget in returns to start being profitable. Please stop talking.
Yeah.
Not that anyone's judging.
Please stop talking is one of the things here on Radulich Broadcasting Network. You can find it on one of our T-shirts. All right, the Bikeriders debuted at number 3. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes fell from 3 to 4. The Garfield movie 4 to 5. If also, I think is now on PVOD. fell from 5 to 6. The Exorcism debuted at number 7. Thelma at number 8. The Watchers dropped from 6 to 9.
That's
Ghost-
struggling.
Apparently, this I guess this is the concert movie. Ghost right here, right now, is doing fairly well for what it is. That debuted at number 10.
That was actually playing right next door when we were watching the Bikeriders, and the Bikeriders had a whole bunch of like really quiet moments. And so anytime somebody from our theater would need to go run to the bathroom or like get a refill, it seemed to coincide when somebody from the Ghost movie needed to do the same thing. So you'd have this like very quiet moment. Tom Hardy's talking with Austin Butler, and then doors would open to hear stop. It's like it's kind of ruining the ambiance there, bro.
Start a mosh pit in the theater next door. Speaking of start a mosh pit, Furiosa fell from 7 to 11. The Fall Guy 8 to 12. I saw the TV glow jumped a few spaces from 17 to 13. Kinds of Kindness, which, hey, did you like Poor Thing? Did you want to see more by this wacky director? Well, go see Kinds of Kindness.
No, thank you. I do not feel like coming down with a case of the Yorgos. No.
I liked Poor Thing so much. I mean, I gushed about it nonstop when we talked about it, that I might have to go see Kinds of Kindness. Right, somebody made a sound. Whoever made, I'm not looking at my screen. Who made the sound? Go ahead and talk.
No, I just said, yeah. No, I was agreeing with you about Kinds of Kindness and Poor Things, saying that was a good movie.
Dorian, have you heard that I said Poor Things was the smart man's Barbie?
I did not get to see the review, so no, I had not heard you say that.
Well, you can now have that nugget of intellectualism. Poor Thing, and you can claim it as your own. You can have it. You just walk around and tell all your friends that Poor Things is the smart man's Barbie.
The thing said by Mark.
I feel wizened.
I'm sorry.
I am Celine Dion, as my friends often call me. Debuted at number 16. The Jesus debuted at 18. Janet Planet, sounds like a wrestler's name. Debuted at number 27. Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Robert, did you make that movie?
If I did, that would not be the title.
That debuted at 38.
I would absolutely have removed consenting from that.
I love you. Green Border debuted at 41. For Profit 42. Chestnut 45. And that was the weekend that was. All right. Now for my favorite part of this entire segment, the worldwide box office. Do we have movement? What's the plus or minus on this, Robert?
Well, of course we have some movement.
Holy shit!
We have a brand new King of the Hill.
That's right. We have a new champion. Holy shit! He got the 1, 2, 3, and he raised the title high, ladies and gentlemen. The number one movie in the world with $728 million worldwide is Inside Out 2. How about that shit?
Billion looking more possible. Definitely looking more possible.
I said that last week. I said this is going to be the first movie to hit $1 billion.
I was a little bit less convinced. I wasn't sure it was going to have kind of the staying power that it turns out it did, but kids being out of school in the summer and having something you can throw them in front of.
And parents showing up to meetups and tea parties and whatever else, turning to their friends going, hey, did you see the new Pixar movie? I did. It's not gay. You should take your kids. I'm sure that helped.
Definitely.
Dune Part 2 fell to number 2 with 711. Godzilla multiplied by Kong at 567 at number 3. Kung Fu Pandas 543. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at number 5 at 385. And rounding out the top 10 are Bad Boys Ride or Die, Garfield, Ghostbusters, If, and Bob Marley. Kicked out of the top 10 unceremoniously. The Fall Guy, Furiosa, The Beekeeper, Civil War.
Furiosa was never in the top 10. The question was whether or not Furiosa was going to beat The Beekeeper at one point. It did squeak by that one.
Yeah, it slid by.
At this point, it's about even money if it'll beat The Fall Guy, but it is not beating Bob Marley.
Yeah. And the movies over 100 end with Madam Web. Movies that didn't. Here are the movies currently doing worse than Madam Web. Argyle, Challengers. Good. Fuck you, Challengers. Oh, promise me a threesome and don't deliver.
For those of you who watched the entire episode, remember back about an hour ago when Robert was saying he loved the fact that the documentarian and Bikeriders was played by somebody from the Challenger movie, and it sounded
I didn't say that.
He was lying.
That was me.
Mark said that. I did not say that.
Mark said that, not Robert. My bad.
Listen,
Mark went to see Challengers expecting a return to Porky's, Hard Bodies, Barbed Wire,
That was
things of
wild.
that nature.
He dreamed a dream in time gone
I
by.
was promised the Flamingo Kid. I got the Karate Kid. It was bullshit. Anyway, and then we got Night Swim, Back to Black, which I heard sucks. Abigail, Jesus Christ, look at that, Robert. I don't remember if that made money or not.
I think it does technically because it's got a very small budget. That thing was like maybe 20 million at the top end.
We got Imaginary at 39, Monkey Man at 34.
Monkey Man's the big disappointment, if we're being honest.
No, here's the big disappointment. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I will truck with
Shame.
nobody speaking bad of Guy Ritchie, and this makes me sad.
I will absolutely speak badly of Guy Ritchie if I feel it's necessary. This movie deserved better than that.
Yeah. All right, so that is the weekend that was. Next week, we've got a return to something along the lines of mainstream. We've got A Quiet Place, Part 1. I have zero hope that this movie is going to be A, good, B, entertaining, C, make money.
I'm torn on the Quiet Place thing because it's a fun gimmick. The problem is the entire premise of A Quiet Place falls apart if you think about it even a little bit. And it's one of the worst apocalypse events that's been put to screen if you consider it.
I think I haven't seen the very first A Quiet Place, but I can see the appeal. The cast was good. You had John Krasinski and Emily Blunt in there, and they're sort of in the middle of all of this, and you're sort of following this family, and this family appears eminently likable. So
the first one's pretty good, but the gimmick is what gets it by because it's almost a silent movie. There's very little dialogue. There's no music. So you're actually astutely aware of all the quasi-sapient apes around you who are loudly munching their popcorn or can't stop whispering to each other.
Sure. So my point being, like, I think everything, and so it's so good, so nice they did it twice, but I think everything that makes A Quiet Place interesting and drew a crowd is utterly absent from this movie, and all you've got left is an alien invasion movie and a lead character who I can guarantee you no one's going to give a shit about. So yeah, I don't have a lot of hope here. And we're using and on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, we use a gauge, and that gauge is a 10-year-old boy. And if the 10-year-old boy gives it a thumbs up, it's a winner.
A very average 10-year-old boy too, by the way.
Okay, and if he gives it a thumbs down, it's a stinker. And he is not excited for A Quiet Place day one. So, do I think it'll be the #1 movie of the weekend? Yep, sure.
No.
By that point, Inside Out will be in its 3rd week.
I actually don't know if it beats Inside Out.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think
it probably will for the weekend, maybe, but no further than that.
Yeah, I think it edges out Inside Out.
Unless we're wrong, because again, though some of us work in the entertainment industry, we do not actually work for those people, so we don't know what the movie's like. We could all be like, "This movie's gonna suck," and the movie's like, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, well, that's what happened Inside Out too.
Right.
I mean, just in terms of projection, I think Inside Out 2 continues to build an audience. I think it's going to cross 1 billion. I just don't. I think The Weekend and the overall take are two completely different animals. I think Quiet Place.
I know. I'm just
kind of makes it.
I'm a little bit. You hit the nail on the head a little bit that this is a franchise that Part 2 burned some people because one of the nice things about Part 1 of A Quiet Place is that it's actually optimistic about humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And Part 2 decided to throw a bunch of The Last of Us in there, and I think that was a terrible decision.
After that, I'm on my laptop and not my home computer.
While Mark's looking that up, Robert, it feels like Part 3 is trying to do, like, day one is trying to do War of the Worlds. And I'm not talking about War of the Worlds, I'm talking the Spielberg one, and yes, I'm talking bad about my hero, but still, that's when I saw the trailer.
Nobody has a perfect filmography. Nobody.
So moving forward, we've got Despicable Me 4 coming up, which is looking, because the Minions movies and Despicable Me movies, generally speaking, make about $1 billion, give or take. So I imagine that one's going to do well too.
Slapstick is alive and well as a comedy genre. That's all
And
I
then
can tell you.
we're off for a week, but hey, if you don't want to go to the movies, you can always watch Jake Paul fight Mike Perry here in Tampa. And then we have Twisters, which the more I think Twisters are starting to get an audience. I think they put a lot of marketing into this. The trailers have been going for the last 6 months of any movie I've seen. I've seen the trailer a bunch of times. It's got a likable cast. I actually think Twisters is going to do fairly well and actually might have some staying power. People like a good disaster film, so if it doesn't piss people off, I think this one's going to draw
I gotta stop everybody real quick. Mr. Kettner, you asked me to do this. It is 9:30 now. This is usually when you have to bounce out.
I'm afraid so, guys. Thanks for having me, and I hope I can come back.
Anytime you like.
Thanks, Mac.
Bye.
Sorry about that. That was just something he'd asked me to do if we got too deep into something. So
Sure, no problem.
Just using this back as a segue to get us back into what we were doing. I think the reason Twisters is grabbing an audience is because it's been so long since the first one, and it never had a sequel. And again, Bill Paxton passing, and all of us being like, "Hey, we may not have been the biggest Bill Paxton fan on the planet, but we all kind of liked him, and or loved him."
As the cast is gone. Like that was Helen Hunt at the height of Helen Hunt's powers, and she's now a thing of the past. Bill Paxton is dead. Like
So
it's
hang on. You want me to depress you even more?
Philip
Allow
Seymour
me to do
Hoffman's
so.
dead.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's in that, and he's dead.
So this Twisters movie is basically like a soft reboot. And, it's funny because Twister was one of those movies where when it came out, people were like, I can't believe this is a thing. And then it became a hit. Like everyone was like, no, this is dumb. This is the stupidest thing ever. I'm not going to go see it. Then they saw it and they were like, oh, wow, it's fun to watch cows fly.
Because I saw Twister, I saw the original Twister in theaters. I was living in Oregon at the time. That's one of those movies that, and if Twisters is able to recapture this, it'll help it. You need to see Twister on a big screen.
That's what I'm saying. I think just from what they've shown in the trailer, I think the destruction porn element works really well on the big screen. People are going to want to see that on a big screen. Like that's one where you don't necessarily have to see it at home and be satisfied. That's one where you might get a better viewing experience on the screen. And the problem is, like, film people might know that, but the average person, not necessarily. This one might breach the gap. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to do well.
I've started to come around. I'm not excited for it, but I think it would be foolish to pretend it hasn't been finding its audience recently.
I have developed a bit of hope. And speaking of hope, we end the month with Deadpool and Wolverine. And I've already on record as saying that's going to end up being the #1 movie of the year.
I can't tell you how much I want that movie to bomb. It's not going to. I live in reality. It's not going to.
So can I tell you, I gave Alexis a lot of credit today for dropping off that review. She was just like, it's like Zach wanted to be on for I don't know what reason. And then David's like, oh, count me in. And I'm like, well, David versus Robert, round 12. And then Alexis goes, yeah, I'm going to let you all have that one. I'm like, hey, Alexis is finally catching on. Andrew, we tend to just destroy the Marvel movies here. Like, what crowd-pleasing, joyful movies these are that we shit all over. It's becoming our talking trade.
All evidence about the last 4 of them to the contrary.
So that's it. That's what we got going on for the money. Let's get into our final segment of the evening, the critical review. Robert, you're up. You ready to go?
Yep.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alrighty, so what we're looking at here at the moment, we have a fresh rating on the tomato meter at 81%. Audience is mostly positive at 74. And if we take a slightly closer look here, top critics drops it a little bit, only 2 points, down to 79. Acceptable differential between all critics and top critics. And our audience score, if we go to the verified audience, does not change. That's a rarity. Believe it or not, to have those be exactly in sync.
Yeah, it said a 3.8 to a 3.9 on that.
Yeah.
But Robert, what does the AI say?
The AI assigned to crawl and summarize all of this says fueled by a charismatic cast and the gritty authenticity of writer-director Jeff Nichols' approach, the Bikeriders offers a conventional yet impactful look at motorcycle culture, which is a little bit too flowery for my taste, but If all you have to do is summarize what everyone else has said, that could be inaccurate.
Why couldn't they have used Andrew's review? They said there'd be bikes. I got bikes.
I'm sure someone
sure Kevin Carr said that in his review.
did. Be nice.
All right, let's have a look here through
I
some
want
of
your
these.
wives.
I don't have to play your stupid games when I have control of this.
God damn it.
I hate it when mom and dad fight.
Okay, Mark, read our Indian critic. Read that name for me, if you would.
I can't. Hang on.
Right there.
It's
All right, I got it.
Daita.
Oh, God. You're an asshole. Udita Junjun Walla, Washington.
Live Mint top critic. Conflicts abound, yet one doesn't feel emotionally connected to these characters whose life choices are so particular and often violent. At times, the film feels like a photo exhibit with long monographs.
Okay.
You used monograph here purely to be pretentious.
Speaking of pretentious, Johnny Aleksinski of New York Post top critic. I hate this guy. I really do. Butler is the rare leading man who makes us believe time travel really does exist. Did you even
How
see
in the world do you arrive at that conclusion?
Honestly, I don't think he saw the movie. I think he phoned that one in.
Butler's publicist sent him something to say, and he just threw it up there.
I think that I don't fully agree, but he was able to capture again, speaking with Mr. Kettner about how people were in that time, because I really wanted his point of view on it from someone who lived at that time. He was like, yeah, Butler really captured a guy who just kind of didn't care. Yeah. So that might be what he means. I'm not trying to make that reviewer sound smart, but that might have been what he meant.
Dorian is just like, look, I'm not trying to get you guys to make fun of me. Look, let me just say this.
No. Okay, here's the guy who stole Andrew's review.
My movies is going to be on this show, and one of the critics is going to review it. And I'll probably know this guy by that.
On this show is fucking Chris Pratt from one of the Jurassic World movies. We're just dinosaurs, all like snarling at him, and he's just like, I have valid opinions.
It's okay.
Hang on. I did find the person who stole Andrew's review. Here we have Abby Bernstein of Assignment X.
I was going to say,
look at a 60s era motorcycle gang.
I can see Russia from my house.
Andrew, do you have an alternate identity on Rotten Tomatoes as Abby Bernstein?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, who knows?
Perfect. Jeremy Johns.
We have Jeremy Johns of JeremyJohns.com. This is a film that I feel makes a very earnest attempt to show a grounded peek behind the curtain of motorcycle culture, and that is an absurdly wordy sentence, sir. You need an editor.
Are we a movie review show, or are we a Hooked on Phonics show?
Yes.
This point is where we discuss the editing process. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Okay, something Mark will agree with. Here we have Sean Burns of North Shore Movies. There must be a more elegant way of telling this story than just having Mike Faist point a microphone at people and letting them blather on about the movie's themes.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Okay, who else do we have? Oh, we have Leonard Maltin, top critic.
Malty! Hello, Uncle.
It's been a minute since Old Man Malton's been here. Top critic of his own website. Self-employed loser. The Bikeriders has an air of authenticity, and its leading actors are completely convincing. I bought in and found the film compelling from start to finish.
Oh, Uncle Malty doesn't ruffle feathers.
He could be speaking honestly. Just because you had a different experience doesn't mean he's lying.
I agree with him. It's like, again, and everybody gives Malton crap while Robert's finding another one. For being like, well, he's always the nice one, and da da da. It's like, dude, I prefer his reviews to the
Doug Walker,
the old skinny one and the fat one.
Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movies.
Stop, Siskel and Ebert.
I would watch Leonard Maltin review every movie known to man before I'd watch 5 seconds of Siskel and Ebert, even if they were just announcing themselves. I'm already like, okay, I want to punch you, and I don't like punching people, so I'm going to leave now.
Allison Gilmore of New York Magazine.
Hang on, I do want to get to that. Just give me a sec. because we have to have one of these reviews that is a bad pun about the subject material. Allison Wilmore, of New York Magazine / Vulture, top critic. The result is that the Bikeriders just feels constipated, and that's no condition in which to ride a motorcycle.
You know, I don't wish death on people because I don't think you should, but I would not be against someone giving her a punch in the stomach on her way to the car.
And this show is about violence.
I can't necessarily support.
Hey, for the new people tuning in, I haven't seen the old episodes.
Damn you, Hollywood, wishing death on people since 2015.
Early days, I did wish death on a lot of people. That's very true.
Hey, look, it's my arch enemy.
Michael Medved of The Michael Medved Show. The British cast's attempts at Midwestern accents can be distracting, only if you're a West Coast douchebag. But the main flaw is these Bikeriders spend more time in graphic, sadistic brawls for an R rating than experiencing the joy of the open road and the spirit of freedom and adventure. Almost like this isn't a travel log, sir.
Michael Medved's mad that the movie isn't what he wanted it to be. And that's
Make your
Michael
own.
Medved.
If he were to try and make a movie, Mark would join a union just to sue and stop it.
All right, one or two more of these, and then we're done for the night.
Alrighty, let's see who we can find here.
Did none of your wives review this?
Please stop referring to me as having multiple wives, sir. I do not need that. I don't need that heat coming down.
Hey, look, it's your uncle.
Okay, we'll go with Roger Moore as our penultimate one. Then I want to have a quick look for maybe someone else. Roger Moore, Movie Nation. A 2-hour waste of a lot of fine vintage motorcycles.
Roger Moore hates his life. Andrew,
It's like
the
what
reason why
Mac
we
was saying,
say-
but instead of focusing on the
look,
actors,
I'm
it's
gonna
like
look
the
at Andrew.
motorcycles
Hi.
are being wasted.
Hi, Andrew.
What'd you say, Andrew? It got cut off.
It's like it's what Mac was saying about wasted potential, except instead of the actors, it's about the bikes.
So I want to talk to Andrew for just a moment while Robert finds one last one to do here. So we started doing this segment, Andrew, because with one movie in particular, I started reading the Rotten Tomato reviews because it was so ridiculous. They were like over the top ridiculous. I think one of the reviewers referred to the movie as Trumpy, and I laughed hard at this.
That was a frequent refrain when we were reviewing The Founder.
Yeah.
So the whole thing that year, movies were Trumpy. Never mind, they were shot 3 years ago.
So what has happened since 2015 when we started really digging into like a lot of the movie reviewers via Rotten Tomatoes was we started seeing patterns emerge. A lot of reviewers were resting on their laurels as far as just making bad puns. So we would start calling that stuff out. There seemed to be a lot of reviewers all saying the same things as if they were getting copy from a marketer, from a somebody marketing the film.
There were a few too many that were way too close.
So the point of it is just like between the bad takes and the bad takes, stuff that was really an editorial and not really a criticism, an objective criticism. There was just a lot wrong we felt in the critical community. And we were like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for us to really point that out and say, here's what's wrong with the people criticizing a lot of these movies. So that's why we do this. Also, it's fun to make fun of these guys.
All right, because here's a pun to close out on. Dennis Schwartz. The Schwartz is with him. Of Dennis Schwartz movie reviews. Mel Brooks will sue. The script often skids out of control.
Dick.
This is the kind of thing we have to deal with.
Yeah, this is, again, why do we do this segment? That's why. All right, folks, that is the end of our Bikeriders review. Hey, we got in under 2 hours. Woo! Speaking of Bikeriders, this Wednesday, I will be reviewing Sons of Anarchy Season 5 with Jesse Starcher and Ronnie Adams, maybe kind of, sort of. That's what I'm doing. Last week, we did Inside Out 2, and what else did I do? Oh, I did a Metal Hammer. It was delayed in going up, but the video is finally up now. We did a Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox on Bon Jovi Forever, and I talked about not going to concerts anymore because I actually want to save money. We also did a list.
That's a good reason. 11
cheesiest hair metal ballads. That was a lot of fun. So plus,
how did you limit that to only 11?
Because that's what Loudwire did.
Very, very carefully.
So we we talked about the history of Bon Jovi. We sang off key. It was a lot of fun, and we talked about the new album. Plus, we watched a few music videos, one of which was a new Baby Metal one. So that's that. We also, I had Gavin on last week, I believe it was, to do a Ryan Reynolds actor focus. We looked at Waiting, Van Wilder, and Chaos Theory. And Gavin's always a great guest. We had a lot of fun on that show. So that's
I'm
what
sure
I got
you
going
did.
on.
All those movies suck.
Okie dokie. So Andrew, this is the part where you get to plug any places where people can find you, or any projects that you're doing, or if you're like some people, tell us where you perform jujitsu, whatever you like. This is your time.
I don't know. I do a lot of stuff like this, for fun. So, I
To be
mean,
fair, I warned you this was coming. I didn't just let them hit you in the face with this. I warned you you're going to have to plug yourself.
well, it's like, I don't know what to plug. Like, I work in the nursing field. That's my, job. So it's like, how do you plug that on a movie review?
Are you an RN?
Please don't die so I don't have to deal with paperwork.
Are you an RN, an LPN? Whatever.
I'm an RN.
You're an RN?
I'm an RN.
I'm an LCSW.
But, I mean, I'll throw a plug in for for Kaizen, because I do a lot of stuff with them.
Okay.
So I mean, come out and see their events. They do great stuff. Frikey or for Dorian. I'll push it all.
All right, that's your cue,
He's pushing it all over to Dorian, just like he said. It was actually well timed.
And then there were 3.
To plug a little bit more of what Andrew does. Andrew's an upcoming actor here in Kansas City. There's a lot of projects that are coming out very soon that if you guys like seeing him here, you're going to see him on the big screen actually acting. He works a lot with us, and obviously with Kaizen KC, who does a lot of anime and also cyberpunk events. You can find them on Facebook at kaizenkc.com. Or sorry, on Facebook it's just Kaizen KC. I don't know why I put the .com there. I just flowed into that. But yes, and that's Kaizen KC, Kaizen. KC, obviously a K and a C. There'll be some people like, he didn't spell KC. Well, my bad. But yes, I'm Dorian Price at Frikey Pictures again. If you're in the Kansas City area or the Midwest, really, or actually anywhere in the country, because we've now gone full national. If you need it photographed, you need it filmed, you need it edited, please, at Frikey Pictures on Instagram, Facebook, please message us. You will get 4-star filming and photography for 2-star prices. The biggest thing I have to hawk today is I got the very, very special chance, and we're still in the middle of filming it, to do a music video for Drew 6. And that is the name Drew and then the number 6 for his hit song, Just Spent Time. We'll be going to be filming that more as we get into July. It's a very, very special event for us, probably one of the biggest things we've done to this point. You can find Drew 6 on Spotify. Please check out his music. He's a fantastic person. Again, if you like this movie, you'll like his music, because it's got that kind of middle of the road, we're driving down kind of country, but still rock feel to it. So you're really going to like it. But yeah, that's all for me. And I'll be back on the Radulich network, probably in yet another weird ass costume. Well, this one is technically something I actually wore in real life.
Well, man, we got Nosferatu coming up at the end of the year. I expect something big from you.
oh no, it's already in plans. The minute
Nice.
I got the word that Mr. Radulich said, hey, you're on it, I went, all right, here we go.
Did you see the trailer for that ahead of the Bikeriders? Because I did.
About it, yeah. Jen and I both
I did, and I was very excited. Like, I didn't know exactly what was happening. Like, when it said the Robert Edgar as director, I was like, oh, is it this? Because I know they've been talking about it. Have they gotten it done, or is this like previous movie he was doing before? And the minute I saw Willem Dafoe, I was like, and again, Andrew was sitting next to me. I was like, like, I'm trying to be quiet so I don't freak anyone out, but I'm like,
I expect you to do that whole review from a casket.
I'm down. I know someone who has a casket who will let me borrow it.
Perfect. Robert Winfree, show us where you pissed from.
Alrighty, you can find me covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. I cover WWE SmackDown on Fridays and UFC events on Saturdays. I did not cover this last UFC event live. It started at noon Eastern because they were in Saudi Arabia, and I had a thing that ran over the majority of that card.
Did they replace the card that was shit canned because of Conor McGregor, or
Okay, that whole card was never destroyed. That fight fell apart, and yes, they replaced it a little bit ago.
Okay.
It's coming up, in fact, this Saturday, UFC 303. No longer headlined by Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler because Conor McGregor broke his pinky toe and decided it wasn't worth the effort.
Ouch.
It's not pleasant, but he's fought without an ACL before, so at this point, I'm just questioning his will to continue doing this. And in fairness, if I'd sold my whiskey business for $150 million, I wouldn't really want to go fist fight for a living either.
No, not when they're probably doing a Conor McGregor spin-off of fucking Roadhouse.
He died.
Yeah,
He's
that would stop them.
And he's, well, no, Conor's about to die too for something, I'm fairly sure, so that'll never happen. But
Never.
UFC 303 is this Saturday. I have a full preview of it over on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. The new main event is the rematch between Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka for the light heavyweight title. Those two maniacs do great violence together. I'm kind of excited. Really good co-main event. Brian Ortega and Diego Lopez. That'll be two rabid badgers in a gunny sack because that's how Diego Lopez fights.
Does it disturb anyone else that he said that with the point of view of someone who's actually personally experienced that?
Not if you've been around Robert long enough, no.
Fair play.
For the rest of you mere mortals, sure.
So again, full preview of that card over on the podcast. Give it a listen if you're so inclined. As mentioned, next week we'll be back here for A Quiet Place Day 1. A little bit iffy on that one, but thank you all very much for tuning in. We had a bigger cast than usual tonight, but a very good show, and I'd like to thank everyone who was on it.
Yep, appreciate you coming on, Andrew. Hope we didn't scare you away. Though I say that every time, and everyone's just like,
You're in the black hole now. You're in the black hole. You've been warned.
Welcome to the
I'll
club.
fix that internet before next time.
You better. All right. Thank you, Dorian, for coming on in your Bret Michaels cosplay. We appreciate you. Tell Mac we love him. For Robert Winfree, I'm gonna go hang out with my girlfriend. Be well, be safe, and behave.